Hey guys, tonight we step into the shadows of something ancient, something most people never notice until it's too late. Imagine a night so still it feels like the air is holding its breath. The trees don't sway. The sky doesn't blink. Even your own thoughts start to whisper. You can feel it in your bones, that electric hush that dances on the edge of every breath. Something's coming. And you? Well, you probably won't survive this the same person you were before. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're tuning in from. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this soul family reaches. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you feel is the pressure. Not on your skin deeper. It's like the world around you is stretching, making room for something unseen. You're not sure when it started, this strange sensitivity to silence. But tonight, it hums louder than ever. Your fingertips tingle. The hairs on your arms rise. It's not fear exactly, it's remembrance. You were born with this radar. While others slept, you always felt the shift before it showed up. As a child, you knew when someone was lying, even if their smile said otherwise. You sensed when sadness crept behind a person's eyes. And sometimes, you heard music where there was none. That wasn't imagination. That was intuition. And now, it's waking up again. Stronger, sharper, hungrier. The world may call you empath. Old soul, sensitive, psychic. But none of those quite fit. Because you're more than that. You're a thread pulled from a tapestry few even know exists. A key made for a lock no one can see. You're a chosen one. And the storm, it's looking for you. No pressure, right? Let's rewind just a little. You weren't born with a neon sign that said, "Destined One," blinking over your crib. No heavenly choir belted your arrival. If anything, you've probably felt the opposite. Out of place. Misunderstood. Like you crash-landed here from a realm that speaks in stardust and symbols while everyone else's language is traffic lights and taxes. But that disorientation, that's part of the map. Because chosen ones aren't here to blend in. You're here to disrupt, to question, to break patterns, to stir the sleeping and sing to the storm. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange ache in your ribs. Like your soul is knocking from the inside, whispering. There's more. You're more. Wake up. And now, here you are, wide awake, staring into the space between what is and what's coming. The veil is thinner tonight. The winds haven't started yet. But the clouds they're gathering behind your heartbeat. Some say the chosen ones are marked by signs, strange dreams, sudden losses, impossible resilience. Historians still argue whether ancient prophets actually foresaw global events or just tapped into a deeper, collective current. But one thing's certain in every age. There are those who feel the quake before the ground shifts. You're one of them, and the shift is coming. But don't worry, you're not here to fight it. You're here to embody it. That starts by noticing the silence, not avoiding it, not distracting yourself with another scroll, another show, another snack, but sitting with it, feeling the tremble beneath the quiet. You breathe in, and it's like you taste electricity. You breathe out, and the shadows seem to listen, somewhere deep in your memory. You'll remember this feeling. Maybe it was a dream or a past life. or just something etched into your spiritual DNA. But you've walked this path before. You've stood at the edge of something vast and terrifying and sacred. And every time you stepped forward, not because you weren't afraid, but because you were ready. And now, as the quiet stretches longer than it should, you start to see the signs. The flicker in the street light that shouldn't flicker. The owl that hoots twice at the same time every night. The sudden urge to check your window at 3:33 a.m. Little things. Strange things. Things you'd shrug off if you weren't paying attention. But you are. Because you can't not. The silence is a signal. And it's calling you. You start to feel like a tuning fork, vibrating with invisible waves. Your thoughts slow down. Your breath gets deeper. The space around you shifts like reality is stretching thin. You don't know what's coming, but you know it's not random, because storms don't just happen. They build, they watch, they wait for the right moment, and so do you. Your purpose isn't some far-off treasure chest waiting at the end of a rainbow. It's here, in this moment, in this stillness, in the way your body tenses without cause, the way your spirit whispers things your mind can't explain. So listen, tonight, something old is stirring, something sacred, and your bones, yeah. Those bones, they remember what to do. You don't remember the exact moment it started, but you do remember the feeling. A strangeness that wrapped around you as a child. Like a coat that didn't quite belong to anyone else. Other kids played tag or worried about lunchboxes. You stared up at the sky, wondering why you felt older than your age. As if you had memories that weren't yours, and emotions that stretched far beyond the smallness of your world. No one taught you how to hold that kind of weight. You didn't even have the words to explain it. And when you tried, people gave you that look, the polite smile with the confused eyes. So eventually, you stopped talking about it, but it never left you. It only grew. You were born of strange fire, the kind that doesn't burn the skin, but scorches the soul clean. The kind of fire that doesn't destroy, but reveals. You could sense energy before you knew what that meant. You picked up on moods before a word was spoken. And when the world was loud, your inner world became louder. You'd lie in bed, heart racing, unsure why your body felt like a lightning rod. Some nights you'd dream in colors that didn't exist. Other nights you'd wake up with tears on your face, mourning something unnamed. As if your soul remembered a place you'd never been, but desperately wanted to return to. A home behind the stars. A family made of light. That's not imagination. That's memory. Soul memory. Chosen ones often arrive through spiritual portals disguised as regular families. But your spirit, it didn't come here to be regular. It came encoded with a mission, and the universe wrapped it in flesh. That fire in your chest. That's not anxiety. That's activation. It's your soul whispering. You're here now. Let's begin. You see, the ancients believed some children were born during celestial alignments for a reason. Whether it was the Dogon tribe reading Sirius B long before telescopes, or Mayan star charts mapping consciousness cycles, cultures across time knew that some arrivals weren't accidental. Historians still debate whether these mythologies were symbolic or literal. But here's the thing, your bones already know. You don't need proof when you carry the echo of stars in your bloodstream. So when strange synchronicities follow you, when clocks freeze at the same time, when feathers appear in your path, When strangers tell you things they've never said aloud, it's not coincidence, it's alignment. Your arrival cracked something open, not just in your family line, but in the energetic grid around you. And whether they knew it or not, people felt it. That's why some were drawn to you instantly, and others reacted like your very presence disturbed something dormant in them. You didn't mean to trigger people, but truth has a way of doing that. Even when it's only 5 years old and staring out the window, asking questions too big for bedtime, you felt things deeply, too deeply. They said, but feeling deeply is not a flaw. It's a spiritual sonar, mapping what lies beneath the surface. You didn't just witness life, you absorbed it. And sometimes, that meant you cried for reasons you couldn't explain, or laughed when no one else got the joke. You were tuned to a different station, and while the world plays top 40 noise, you've been hearing symphonies. You're not broken, you're remembering, and that remembering, it's calling you now. You always thought pain was something to avoid, that it meant something was wrong, something needed to be fixed. But what if pain is a doorway? What if it's not punishment, but passage, a path your soul agreed to walk long before your body knew the way? This is where the weight of knowing comes in, because being a chosen one doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with friction, with questions that won't leave you alone, with truths you didn't ask for, but can't unsee. You begin to realize that life isn't just happening to you, it's happening through you. And that's a lot to carry, especially when no one around you understands the burden. You try to shrug it off, act normal, blend in. But the knowing won't let you. You walk into a room and feel the temperature of tension before anyone says a word. You touch an object and get flashes, memories that don't feel like yours. You pass a stranger and suddenly feel sadness so deep, you wonder if it's always been hiding in your chest. You start to wonder, am I crazy? But no, not crazy. Tuned. It's like you've been dropped into a world of noise with an internal radio that only plays whispers. The quiet between words. The space between what people say and what they mean. And once you notice it, you can't go back. You can't unknow. You can only go deeper. And deeper means heavier, because the more you know, the harder it is to pretend. To smile when the energy feels wrong. To sit still when your spirit is vibrating. To laugh at jokes that scrape against your soul. You start pulling away, not because you're antisocial, but because you're overstimulated. Your nervous system isn't built like theirs. It's wired to feel, to absorb, to alchemize. Historians still debate whether empaths are a biological evolution or a spiritual design. Either way, you are both. And the pain, it's not a glitch. It's a gift. Pain points to where the energy is blocked, where the lie lives, where the wound needs witness. And when you let yourself truly feel it without flinching, without numbing, you start to understand something profound. You were never meant to carry it all, but you were meant to see it all, because what's seen can be transformed. That's why the pain visits you first. That's why the weight lands in your lap. Not to break you, but to break open what the world tries so hard to keep shut. And it's in those moments, curled in bed, lights off, tears flowing with no clear source, that something sacred happens. The veil thins, the wound becomes a window, and through it, you glimpse a different kind of truth, not the kind in books, the kind in blood, in memory, in vibration. You begin to sense patterns others miss, that every time your heart aches, someone close to you is going through something, that your moods aren't just yours, That your fatigue is not just physical, it's spiritual static from all the frequencies you're filtering. And suddenly, solitude feels safer than small talk. You'd rather walk alone in the woods than sit in a crowded room. Not because you don't love people, but because people can be loud, especially when they don't know they're bleeding. You start to crave silence, stillness. The moon becomes your friend. The wind feels like a message. You read energy like a second language. And no one taught you, you just remembered. This is the weight of knowing. Not everyone gets it. That's okay. Some will say you're too much, too intense, too sensitive. But you're not too much, you're just not afraid of depth. And people who fear their own shadows will always try to dim those who dare to shine light. But here's the truth they can't erase: you were built for this. Built to walk through shadows with your head held high. Built to feel the fire and keep going. Built to transmute the heaviness into healing, not just for you, but for others. Because every time you embrace what hurts, you carve space for someone else to do the same. So no, pain isn't the enemy. It's the invitation. And you're brave enough to accept it. There comes a moment when reality stops making sense the way it used to. Not in a dramatic, falling through the sky kind of way. More like a slow dissolve. One day, everything feels normal. The next, your surroundings feel oddly hollow, like a movie set you never realized was fake until you touch the walls. You begin to feel like a wanderer between worlds. It's subtle at first. You catch yourself zoning out during conversations. You hear someone speak, but their words sound like static. You walk into a room and forget why you're there, not because you're distracted, but because a part of you is somewhere else. And that part, it's beginning to wake up. You start noticing the cracks in the facade. How people say I'm fine when their energy screams I'm breaking. How the news cycles rinse and repeat the same panic. How time doesn't feel linear anymore. How hours stretch and fold like origami. And sometimes days vanish like smoke. This isn't forgetfulness. It's a thinning. The veil between this world and the next, between the visible and the invisible, is getting thinner. And your soul, wired like a compass, starts to lean toward the unseen. You find comfort in moonlight, in candle flames, in the hush of twilight. Things you once dismissed, gut feelings, repeating numbers, fleeting shadows, suddenly feel like secret codes. And maybe they are. Historians still argue whether ancient mystics truly walked between dimensions or if they were simply misunderstood sages. But if you asked your heart, it would whisper that they were real, that they knew something we've forgotten, that the lines between realms are not walls, but whispers. You begin to straddle the border, half here, half there. Your dreams become vivid, like full-color films with messages tucked into every corner. Animals seem to watch you longer. Children sense something in your eyes. You find yourself drawn to places with old energy cemeteries, cathedrals, quiet forests, and sometimes you just need to be there, to stand, to listen. Reality no longer feels singular. It feels layered, like peeling wallpaper to reveal murals beneath. You look at a tree and feel its memory. You hold an object and feel its story. And sometimes, just sometimes, you hear thoughts that aren't your own. This isn't imagination. It's initiation. You're being invited to walk between worlds. But here's the catch: most people don't see the doorway. Not because it's hidden, but because it's quiet. And the modern world loves noise, loves logic, loves certainty. But you're starting to love the mystery. You realize not everything can be explained. That knowing isn't the same as understanding. and that truth real. Soul-deep truth feels like déjà vu, so you stop fighting it. You let yourself drift sometimes. You lie in bed, eyes wide open, and feel yourself floating not away, but within. You see colors when you meditate. You hear names when no one's around. You wake up with lyrics on your tongue that don't exist in any song, and slowly, you stop needing validation. You stop needing others to believe you. Because the path between worlds isn't a parade. It's a pilgrimage. And not everyone is meant to walk it. You are. You find comfort in the in-between, in the liminal, in the spaces where most people look away. You feel guided, even when no one's physically there. You feel protected, even when you're alone. And you begin to trust that your footsteps are echoing in more than one dimension. This is what it means to be a wanderer between worlds, not lost, just expanded, not delusional, just attuned. So next time you feel like you're floating, like your body's here, but your spirit is somewhere just beyond, don't resist it. Breathe into it. Let the veil flutter. Let the message come, because the more you surrender, the clearer the signs become. And in those soft, sacred moments between sleep and wake, between breath and thought, you begin to remember something extraordinary. You never truly belonged to just one world. You were always meant to walk between them. You didn't ask for the dreams. They just started arriving. Slowly at first, vague shapes, colors, a voice you couldn't quite remember after waking. But then they sharpened. Faces, symbols, whole cities rising and falling behind your eyelids. Some of them comforting, others not so much. You wake up some nights feeling like you've run a marathon in another realm. Your sheets are tangled, your chest tight. The dream slips away, but the feeling lingers. Something important happened. Something you were part of. It's not just imagination. Dreams are a portal. In many ancient cultures, dreams weren't dismissed, they were sacred. The Aboriginal Australians believed in the dream time, a parallel realm that shaped reality. The Egyptians left behind dream books. Even Aristotle wrote about the messages buried in sleep. Historians still debate whether prophetic dreams were coincidence or connection. But you don't need a lecture to know what your gut tells you. There's more going on when you close your eyes than anyone ever warned you about. And lately, your dreams feel different. Like they're trying to tell you something. Sometimes you're flying, skimming treetops like your body remembers how. Sometimes you're fighting something dark, faceless, ancient. You never lose. But you always wake up right before it ends. You start writing them down, even if they make no sense. And over time, patterns emerge, names, landscapes, the same voice repeating the same message. You start to sense that these aren't dreams in the casual sense. They're briefings, memories, initiations, because chosen ones don't just wake up during the day. They awaken at night. You stop fearing the strange. In fact, you begin to welcome it. When your ears ring at 3 a.m., you no longer think ear infection. You think, what's coming through? When your dream shows you an old woman at a gate or a lion made of stars, you stop brushing it off. You sit with it. You listen. Because you know something now, your dream world isn't separate. It's the training ground, the rehearsal space, the decoder ring for your waking life. And the more you honor it, the clearer the messages become. There's a moment you remember vividly, standing in the middle of a storm in your dream, soaked through, barefoot, heart racing, and a figure steps through the lightning and calls you by a name you've never heard before, but somehow recognize. You wake up gasping. That name echoes in your chest for days. It won't leave you alone. And when you Google it, half hoping it means nothing, half hoping it means everything, you discover it's real. Ancient. Sacred. That's the moment you stop questioning. And the moment you start preparing, you find yourself pulled toward books, symbols, languages you've never studied but somehow understand. You start to trust that your dreams are dropping breadcrumbs, that every strange image, every odd phrase you whisper in your sleep, every surge of fear or joy, it all means something. You begin to dream in ways that don't feel like dreaming anymore. You find yourself waking with energy buzzing in your palms. You start to feel like you're doing work, real work, while you sleep. Healing, guiding, battling, witnessing. You're living a second life in the shadows of the first. And it's no less real. Friends start telling you, you look different today, like you're glowing, or like you haven't slept at all. They don't realize the truth, both are accurate, because each night you go on a journey, and each morning you return just a little more yourself. So when the dreams come, and they will, don't fight them. Write them down, honor them, talk to them, because the dream realm is not a distraction from your mission. It's the map, and you, Dreamwalker, are learning how to read it. It starts with whispers, not actual voices, but nudges, thoughts that don't feel like yours, ideas that drop into your head like pebbles from the sky. You'll be brushing your teeth or folding laundry when suddenly you know something, and you have no idea how. This is the rise of your inner knowing, not logic, not deduction, just knowing. At first, it's unsettling. You don't trust it. You double-check, you Google, you second-guess. But over time, the accuracy is uncanny. You text someone just as they're thinking of you. You take a different road home and avoid a wreck. You say something you didn't plan, and it turns out to be exactly what someone needed to hear. Historians still argue whether these intuitive bursts are psychological phenomena or spiritual transmissions. But for you, it doesn't really matter. Because it works, and it's getting stronger, you begin to feel like a radio tower, picking up frequencies others don't even know exist. Sometimes it's information. Sometimes it's emotion. Sometimes it's just an overwhelming sense that something is about to shift. Your body becomes the instrument. You feel truth in your gut. You feel danger in your neck. You feel peace in your chest. And when something's off, your whole system tightens like a violin string. This is more than sensitivity. It's sacred technology. Chosen ones are not chosen by accident. Your wiring is deliberate. Your antenna is ancient, and it's waking up fast. The more you trust it, the more it reveals. You walk into rooms and feel the residue of arguments. You pass strangers and know what kind of day they've had. You start to avoid crowds, not because you're shy, but because energy clings like static and you absorb it all. It's not always glamorous. There are days it feels like too much. When even a grocery store trip leaves you drained. When someone's smile hides a storm you weren't ready to feel. But with time, you learn to shield, to clear, to discern what's yours and what's not. You start keeping obsidian in your pocket, or wearing copper rings. You learn about grounding, how to root your energy like an old tree in deep soil. You start taking salt baths, not for luxury, but for survival. And slowly, your intuition becomes a companion. It wakes you before your alarm. It whispers which friend to check on. It urges you to turn left when your GPS says right. And when you listen, The whole path opens like magic. Some people call it coincidence. Others call it luck. You call it guidance. You stop needing signs carved in stone. A feather on your path is enough. A sudden chill means pause. A flicker in your chest means yes. And when the voice inside says not now, you listen, even if you don't understand why. This is not delusion. This is initiation. Your intuition isn't a bonus feature. It's the compass. It's the part of you that's always been connected to source, to spirit, to the blueprint you came here with. And every time you honor it, it gets louder. You start having moments of knowing that feel like echoes, like remembering something you never learned. You speak truth that bypasses your mind. You become a vessel. That's what they don't tell you about being a chosen one sometimes. It's not about what you do. It's about what flows through you. You're not here to figure it all out. You're here to tune in. So next time you feel the nudge, the whisper, the knowing that comes from nowhere, don't shrug it off. Pause, breathe, and say thank you. Because what's awakening in you is the very thing the world has forgotten how to hear. There's a pattern you begin to notice. Just when things seem to settle, just when you feel a hint of stability, life throws a curve. A friend ghosts you. A job dissolves. Your body reacts to foods it once loved. And while others chalk it up to bad luck, you feel it's more than that. Welcome to the unraveling. It's not chaos. It's clearing. Chosen ones don't evolve through comfort. They evolve through collapse, through friction, through shedding what no longer fits, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. At first, it feels like loss, like everything familiar is being stripped away. Your routines, your relationships, even your sense of self. You stand in the ruins, stunned, wondering what you did wrong. But here's the secret: you didn't do anything wrong. You did something right. You grew, and growth demands space. When your soul stretches, your old life starts to pinch. That's why people fall away. That's why jobs feel unbearable. That's why the foods, the music, the books that once defined you now feel foreign. You're not broken. You're shedding. Historians still debate whether the dark night of the soul is psychological breakdown or spiritual rebirth. But you already know it's both. It's the moment the old self dies, so the true self can rise, like a snake molting, like a phoenix burning. And yes, it's messy. You cry in the shower. You cancel plans without explaining. You wake up at 2:22 a.m. with your heart racing and no words to explain why. But even in the mess, something sacred is taking root, because breakdown is often breakthrough in disguise. You start noticing synchronicities. The song that speaks exactly to your pain. The stranger who says what you needed to hear. The book that falls off the shelf and opens to a page that answers your question. The universe is speaking, not to punish you, to guide you. You start to realize your suffering isn't senseless. That your heartbreak cracked you open for a reason. That your loneliness made room for something higher. That your confusion is just the brain's way of resisting the soul's leap. So you breathe. You don't rush to fix it. You sit in the unraveling, and slowly, painfully, beautifully, you let go. You release the old stories, the need to be liked, the belief that safety is in sameness. You start to trust the fire, not because it's comfortable, but because it's clean. It burns away what you've outgrown. It reveals what you never knew you had. And in the ashes, you start building, not a new mask, a new mirror, one that reflects who you've always been beneath the roles. The trauma, the expectations, you, the version of you that's not defined by titles or timelines. The version that listens before speaking. that follows intuition before instruction, that values stillness over noise. You begin to rebuild slowly, piece by sacred piece. A new rhythm, a new sense of enough, a new circle of people who see you, not just tolerate you. A new kind of strength, not loud or forceful, but grounded, rooted, radiant, and though the unraveling still stings, you no longer fear it. Because you know now it's not the end. It's the rite of passage. Every unraveling is a sacred initiation, and you, beloved wanderer, are stepping through it with grace. Something strange happens after the unraveling. You start seeing patterns where others see coincidence. It's as if life suddenly speaks in riddles and metaphors, and you're the only one holding the cipher. You glance at the clock, and it's always repeating digits. You dream of someone, and they call the next day. You think of a place and find it in a stranger's sentence. This is the awakening of synchronicity, and it's not random. You're beginning to live in alignment, where once you chased signs, now they chase you. Where once you questioned everything, now you listen. You've entered the current, and it's taking you somewhere you don't fully understand, but somehow deeply trust. It's like swimming in the ocean at night. You can't see the shore. You don't know where the waves are taking you. But you stop resisting, because deep down, you know the tide knows the way. The signs come faster now. You think of wolves, and they appear on your feed. You ask a question, and the lyrics on the radio answer. You keep seeing the same symbols over and over: triangles, keys, eyes. It's like the universe is handing you a language made of light. Historians still argue whether synchronicities are divine intervention or brain pattern recognition. Carl Jung believed they were messages from the collective unconscious. But you don't need a textbook to feel the truth in your bones. You're not imagining this. You're remembering how to read the map. You find yourself drawn to certain people, places, objects. Not because they make sense, but because they make you feel something ancient. You touch a stone and feel a pulse. You walk into a bookstore and feel like you've come home. You meet someone and instantly know you've known them before. This is more than nostalgia. This is resonance. Everything carries a frequency. And now that you're tuned, you feel it all. You start journaling the patterns. And when you look back, it's like someone planned it all. The heartbreak that led to the healer. The loss that cleared space for the miracle. The mistake that rerouted your entire path towards something you never knew you needed. It's like the universe is conspiring on your behalf. Because it is. Chosen ones walk through fire. Yes. But they also walk with guides, seen and unseen. Sometimes in the form of mentors. Sometimes in the form of mess. But always with purpose. You begin to realize that every detour was the destination in disguise, that every delay was a divine rescheduling, that every breakdown came with a built-in breadcrumb, if you looked closely enough. And this changes how you move through the world. You stop chasing. You start aligning. You wake up and ask, "Show me where to go." You walk slower. Speak softer. You let silence answer questions you once shouted into the void. And the answers, they come. In dreams. In overheard conversations. In the feeling that suddenly you just know. This is the gift of synchronicity. It doesn't make life easier. It makes it meaningful. Because now, even the chaos feels choreographed. Even the uncertainty feels holy. Even the waiting feels like worship. And you realize you're not here to force things. You're here to flow. So next time the signs arrive, don't rush to decode them. Sit with them. Let them linger. Let them soften your edges. Because sometimes, the message isn't in the meaning. It's in the magic of being seen. There comes a point where you stop looking for the light and start realizing you are the light. Not in some grand, messianic way, but in the quiet flicker that refuses to go out. Even when the world grows dim, you begin to understand that being a chosen one isn't about power. It's about presence. You walk into a room and things shift. People open up. Some become uneasy. Others seem drawn to you for reasons they can't explain. That's not ego. That's energy. You've become a mirror. And mirrors make people confront what they'd rather avoid. At first, this is exhausting. You wonder why people vent to you without permission. Why strangers tell you their life stories. Why you walk away from conversations feeling like you've been wrung dry. It's because they sense it, that your field is different. They don't always understand what it is, but their souls do. Historians still argue whether the concept of aura fields has any scientific basis. But ancient cultures from Tibet to Mesoamerica painted halos, glows, radiant energy around those who carried wisdom. And you're beginning to glow. But glowing isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it means people project onto you their hopes, their fears, their expectations. They want you to save them, fix them, carry their pain. And for a while, you try, because that's what light workers do, right? But then you burn out, and in the quiet flicker of exhaustion, you learn a deeper truth. You're not here to save anyone. You're here to hold space, to be the lighthouse, not the lifeboat. You stop chasing, stop rescuing. You start radiating, and your light begins to attract differently. People who see you without needing to use you. Situations that nourish instead of drain. You start drawing in your soul family, those rare ones who've been through their own fires, who speak your unspoken language, who meet your eyes with recognition. These connections aren't loud. They're profound. A simple nod that says, "I see you." A long silence that feels like home. A shared glance that vibrates like memory. You begin to understand that your light doesn't need to be explained. It just needs to be maintained. So you learn to tend it. You get serious about rest, about boundaries, about saying no without guilt. You stop proving yourself. You stop apologizing for your glow. And slowly, something wild happens. You start feeling peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped abandoning yourself. The world doesn't need another exhausted empath. It needs embodied radiance. People who've walked through their own darkness and come out carrying candles. People who know how to hold presence like it's sacred, which it is. You're becoming that. You look back at who you were and realize how much you've softened, not in weakness, but in strength. Your compassion runs deeper now. Your patience stretches wider. And your sense of self, it's not brittle anymore. It's rooted. You no longer need to defend your path. You just walk it, and your very presence becomes the teaching, because being a chosen one isn't about doing more. It's about being more, and in your being, you become a sanctuary for yourself and for others still trying to remember their own light. The deeper you go, the more you begin to realize your presence alone changes things. Not because you speak louder, but because you listen more deeply. Not because you convince others, but because you embody your truth so fully. They feel it. The ripples you send into the world aren't always visible, but they're always felt. This is the power of the silent shift. You don't need to shout to shake the ground. There's a kind of gravity in you now. People notice, children stare, animals approach. The wind even seems to hush when you stand still enough. It's not magic in the wand-waving sense, it's resonance. Your vibration is different. calmer, truer, and like tuning forks. Everything around you starts adjusting to meet it. It used to be that when you walked into chaos, you absorbed it. Now, when you walk into chaos, you anchor it. That's evolution. You stop fighting to be understood. You start valuing inner congruence over outer applause. You no longer chase meaning in things that never truly held it. Instead, you build meaning in the way you live. Speak, rest, love, and it shows. Historians still argue whether spiritual mastery comes from knowledge or embodiment. The mystery schools of Egypt favored technique. The Zen monks of Japan pointed to presence. But you've discovered something else. Mastery begins the moment you stop trying to be anything and simply become. You become the storm and the stillness, the light and the shadow. You stop splitting yourself into acceptable and unacceptable parts. You bring it all home. You no longer perform your healing, you embody it. That doesn't mean perfection. It means presence. You still get triggered, still doubt, still cry. But now, you witness yourself through it all. With compassion, with clarity, with curiosity instead of shame. And that presence, that's what people feel. They can't always name it. But in your company, they soften. They breathe deeper. They remember something about themselves they didn't even know they'd forgotten. You've become a living invitation to authenticity, to depth, to freedom. This isn't the final form of the chosen one. But it's a milestone, a remembering, a sacred checkpoint. You're not the same soul that began this journey. And yet, somehow, you've never been more yourself. You laugh easier now, not because life is easier, but because your grip has loosened. You no longer cling to outcomes. You hold everything loosely, gratefully, like petals in the palm of your hand. You've become a weaver of worlds, a translator of subtle realms. You sense the shift before it arrives. You speak without speaking. You bless with your breath. And still, you remain humble. Not because you doubt your path, but because you understand the vastness of it. You stop asking, "What's next?" and you start whispering, "Thank you." You walk a little slower, smile a little longer, watch sunsets like sermons, treat your body like a shrine, and when others ask what changed, you just smile. Because how do you explain that everything changed without anything needing to? That's the paradox of transformation. It doesn't always look different, but it always feels different. And you, beloved light walker, are walking different. You've become the still point in the turning world, the quiet voice in a loud room, the reminder that peace is not a destination. It's a choice, and you're choosing it over and over until the whole world begins to remember. There's something different about the way you walk now. Not just in posture, but in presence. You used to move through the world trying to stay small, trying not to draw too much attention. Now, you move like the earth itself holds space for you. You don't demand respect, you radiate it. Softly. Naturally. Inevitably. This is the becoming, not the becoming of someone else, but the unfolding of the self you always were beneath the noise, the roles, the expectations. You've shed skins, burned illusions, danced with grief, and still you're here. And more than that, you're whole. You speak less now. But when you do, people listen. Not because your voice is louder, but because it carries weight. Not in volume, but in vibration. Truth hums in your words. Calm steadies your tone. There's a clarity in your gaze that disarms the pretenses of others. This isn't about superiority. It's about sovereignty. You've reclaimed your inner throne. Historians still argue whether true sovereignty comes from detachment or connection. The Stoics argued for inner fortitude. Indigenous wisdom points to harmony with all life. And here you are, balancing both. Centered within, attuned without. You start to attract strange invitations, opportunities that defy logic, encounters that feel written in the stars, a project, a place, a person that accelerates everything. But here's the twist, you're not desperate for any of it. You used to chase signs. Now, you follow peace. And peace is always precise. You no longer overthink every decision. You drop into your body, feel the yes or the no, and trust it. You know that the mind plays chess, but the soul knows the game is already won. This doesn't mean you never falter. You still forget, still get caught in the swirl. But now, you return faster. You come home to yourself with tenderness, not shame. That's the real power, the bounce back. The grace. People start asking you for advice. Not the old fix my problem kind, but the real kind. The quiet, searching kind. The kind that says, how did you do it? How did you get free? And your answer surprises them. I stopped running. You faced the wound instead of avoiding it. Sat with the loneliness instead of numbing it. Honored the endings instead of clinging. You did the hard, holy thing. You told the truth to yourself about everything. And in that honesty, your power returned, not as control, but as clarity. You became less interested in being right and more interested in being real. You started caring less about being liked and more about being aligned. And alignment. It doesn't always look impressive from the outside, but it feels like heaven on the inside. You spend more time in nature now, not to escape the world, but to remember how to live in it. You watch how trees don't compete, how rivers don't rush, how the sun rises without apology. You take notes, and you begin to embody that kind of rhythm, effortless, grounded, true. You realize your worth isn't in what you produce. It's in who you are when no one's watching. And from that place still, sacred, sovereign, you start creating again. Not out of pressure, out of joy, out of resonance, out of the sheer delight of co-creating with the cosmos. Because now, everything you do is an offering. Even your silence, even your rest, especially your love. You begin to notice that your very life has become a ritual. Not in the ceremonial, incense and chanting kind of way, but in the quiet, sacred way you now approach the ordinary. The way you sip tea with reverence. The way you light a candle and feel time pause. The way you close your eyes before speaking. To choose words that heal instead of harm. This is the path of embodied intention. It's not performative. It's presence. You no longer seek the mystical in far-off places. You find it in your own breath, in your hands, in your heartbeat. Every action becomes an altar. Every day, an offering. Historians still debate whether ancient rituals were created for the gods or for the people. But one truth seems to echo through time: what we honor honors us back. And you're honoring yourself now. You don't rush mornings anymore. You wake slowly, breathe deeply, say thank you. Even on the heavy days. Especially on the heavy days. Gratitude isn't a practice, it's your pulse. You move through your spaces differently. Maybe you rearranged your home without knowing why, just that it felt better. Maybe you cleaned out your closet and felt like you shed lifetimes. Maybe you planted something. Even if just a single seed in a pot on the windowsill, because part of you wanted to witness life begin. And maybe that seed was you. You feel the seasons differently now. Not just in weather, but in energy. You know when to grow and when to rest, when to speak and when to be silent. You feel in tune with cycles. Like your body is synced with the moon, you start to crave slowness, not out of laziness, but because you've learned that speed is often a trauma response, that rushing numbs, that stillness reveals, and what it reveals is everything. The subtle emotions, the old griefs, the quiet joys, the unexpected nudges. You let them all rise. You let them all teach you. You start blessing your food. Not out loud, not always, but inwardly. Whispering thanks to the hands that grew it, picked it, prepared it, thanking the earth, the sun, the rain, the alchemy. You bless the people who challenge you. Not because you enjoy conflict, but because you see now everyone is your mirror. And the hard ones, they reflect the parts still healing. You no longer seek perfection. You seek presence. You pause to feel the texture of life, the heat of water, the crispness of air, the song that plays when no one else is around. And it changes you. You begin to live slower, but feel more alive. Your joy is quieter now, but deeper. Your sadness gentler. Even your ambition has softened. You still dream, but the dreams have changed. Less about being seen, more about seeing clearly. Less about having more about holding what you have with care. You no longer need the world to understand you. You understand yourself. And from that place, you move through the world as a walking prayer. You don't always know what's next, but you've learned to trust the path unfolding beneath your feet. Because the path isn't just where you're going, it's who you're becoming along the way. And who you're becoming is sacred. You begin to realize that your connection isn't just vertical, it's horizontal, too. Not only between you and the cosmos, but between you and everything breathing around you. You feel trees now, not just see them. You don't just walk through forests, you commune with them. Their stillness teaches you. Their roots remind you. Their silence nourishes you. Animals behave differently around you. Birds don't always fly away. Cats show up uninvited, like tiny spiritual consultants. Even bugs seem more like messengers than nuisances. You don't always understand why, but your body does. Your soul does. You're vibrating differently. You notice things you didn't before, the way shadows stretch across the pavement like whispers, the way strangers' eyes flash when they're about to say something important. You've become a pattern reader, a weaver of meaning. The world is your oracle now. This isn't coincidence, it's coherence. Historians still argue whether early shamans had special powers or simply heightened awareness. But one thing is clear, they paid attention. And so do you. Now, you no longer separate magic from the mundane. You don't roll your eyes when someone says the universe is speaking. You smile, because it is. Always has been. And now you're fluent. It's not about superstition. It's about sensitivity, perception, presence. You begin to hear beyond words, feel beyond skin, love beyond logic. You're not here to argue reality. You're here to expand it. And sometimes, that expansion feels like grief, because there's a letting go of the old lens, the old limits, the old you. And letting go hurts even when it's holy. You grieve the self you no longer are, the world you no longer fit in, the roles that no longer serve. But in the grief, you find gold. You discover that your sensitivity isn't a wound. It's a superpower. You feel the collective, not just your own pain. And though it can be overwhelming, you learn to transmute. You cry, and the earth drinks your tears like sacred rain. You sing, and the walls vibrate with your remembering. You sit in silence, and the ancestors draw near. You're not just alive. You're aligned, and that alignment begins to heal more than just you. You speak less about awakening now. You embody it. You become the proof, the presence, the possibility. You walk into a space, and people feel a little clearer, a little softer, a little more themselves. Not because you said anything, but because you are something, a reminder of what they forgot, of who they are, of what's real beneath all the noise. You've become the quiet miracle in someone's loud day, the breath in someone's panic, the pause in someone's spiral, and that's no small thing. It's the ripple that becomes a wave. It's the drop that becomes the ocean. It's the chosen one who remembers that they were never separate from the whole, they just forgot they were the sea. And now, you remember, there's a moment that comes quietly after all the searching, all the shedding, all the soul-deep recalibration, when you realize something staggering. You no longer need proof. You don't need the signs, the synchronicities, the validations. Not because they've stopped, but because your faith has deepened beyond the need for them. You've become the proof, your life, your energy, your presence. It radiates the journey. And in that realization, something inside you exhales. You've arrived at the center, not the end of the path, but the still point in the spiral. The place where all the stories collapse into silence. The place where you can finally hear your own heartbeat without the static of seeking. This is integration. Historians still argue whether enlightenment is a state or a process, whether it happens in a flash or through lifetimes of devotion. But you've stopped asking those questions. Not because they're not valid, but because you're living the answers. You're not chasing awakening anymore. You are awakening. You wake up each day not with anxiety, but with intention. Not with dread, but with devotion. Your rituals are less rigid now, more fluid, more alive. Sometimes a prayer looks like a walk in the rain. Sometimes a mantra sounds like laughter. Sometimes a sacred act is just taking a nap without guilt. You've stopped measuring your worth by your output. You've started measuring it by your alignment. And that shift, it's everything. You understand now, alignment creates miracles. So you follow the nudge. Say yes when your soul says yes. Say no even when it disappoints others. You've learned that disappointment is temporary, but betrayal of self leaves scars. You speak less from intellect, more from intuition. You don't argue to be right, you speak to be real. And when silence is more honest than speech, you honor it. You've softened so much. But don't mistake softness for fragility. Yours is the softness of water shaping mountains, carving canyons, flowing where force would shatter. You've let go of needing to know how it all ends. Instead, you savor each chapter, because life is no longer a problem to solve. It's a poem to live. You cry more now, not just in sorrow, but in awe. The sky opens a certain way, and your heart breaks beautifully. A child laughs, and something ancient in you heals. A stranger smiles, and you feel the whole world hug you back. You're not trying to ascend anymore. You're trying to embody. You understand now heaven wasn't a destination. It was always a vibration, and you're holding it. You've become the prayer you used to whisper. You've become the answer you used to seek. You've become the guide you used to wait for. And the world, it's still chaotic, still heavy, still cracking open, but you no longer feel crushed by it. You feel called, not to fix it, but to be in it with love, with grace, with presence, because you're being is the blessing. You wake up one morning and realize you're not waiting anymore. Not for the sign, not for the shift, not for someone else to hand you permission. You're simply living on purpose, in purpose, with presence. The chase is over, not because the work is done, but because your relationship to the work has transformed. You no longer strive, you align. You no longer grip, you allow. You don't ask, am I doing it right? You ask, am I doing it real? You've become the kind of person who leaves places better than you found them, not because you fixed them, but because you brought your full self into the space. That kind of presence leaves a mark. Long after your body has moved on, the world begins to reflect your inner state, not all at once, but enough to notice. Conversations deepen, relationships purify, opportunities appear, not because you hunted them down, but because they recognized your frequency. Historians still argue whether destiny is carved or chosen. But for you, it doesn't matter. Because you're not chasing destiny, you're dancing with it, and it's dancing back. You no longer ask, why me? You ask, why not me? You understand that being a chosen one was never about being better than others. It was about remembering sooner, about saying yes when everything in the world screams no, about standing still when others run, about walking forward with trembling legs and open eyes. You've become a living lighthouse, not because you try to shine, but because you refuse to dim. And others, they start to remember, too, not because you preached, but because you lived it. You become the ripple, the whisper, the seed, and one day, maybe long after you've gone, someone will sit under a tree you planted with your presence. They won't know your name, but they'll feel your essence in the shade, in the breeze, in the quiet strength of roots that go deep. That is legacy. Not loud, not flashy, but enduring. And as you lay down tonight, under this sky that still pulses with ancient secrets, your breath settles into a rhythm older than time. You've walked the spiral. You've returned to center. You are home. And now, as the final words drift into the soft night, let yourself sink even deeper. You don't have to hold anything right now. Not even your breath. Let it all exhale. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. The journey you just walked, though whispered in the quiet, was vast. You traveled timelines. You crossed thresholds. You remembered things no one else can see, but you felt them. Deep in your bones, let that knowing settle. It doesn't need to be processed tonight. It doesn't need to be understood. It only needs to be held. You've done enough. The work, the unwinding, the remembering, it's still happening. Even now, even in stillness, even in sleep, especially in sleep. So close your eyes, if they're not closed already. Let the rhythm of your breath be your lullaby. Let the darkness be your cocoon. There's nothing left to do. Nowhere left to be. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Feel the softness in your chest, the space around your heart, the gentle glow of peace as it tucks itself into every corner of your body. And know this, whatever comes next, you'll meet it not as the seeker, but as the rememberer. Not as the struggler, but as the seer. Not as the one chasing answers, but as the one embodying truth. You're not lost, you're luminous. So sleep now, dear soul. Sleep knowing you are seen. You are safe. You are sacred.